The Book of Daniel. In chapter 2, we read of Nebuchadnezzar's dream and its interpretation by Daniel. Later, Daniel himself had prophetic dreams and visions. The first of these, the vision of 4 beasts, occurred in the first year of Belshazzar's reign, chapter 7. The second vision was of the ram and goat. This occurred in Belshazzar's 3rd year, chapter 8. The vision of the 70 weeks was in the first year of Darius the Mede, who conquered Babylon, chapter 9.
Chapter 2. Now in the 2nd year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was so troubled that his sleep left him. Then the king gave the command to call the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans, to tell the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said to them,
I have had a dream, and my spirit is anxious to know the dream.
Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic,
O king, live forever! Tell your servants the dream, and we will give the interpretation.
The king answered and said to the Chaldeans,
My decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me and its interpretation, you shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made an ash heap. But for our sakes who make known the interpretation to the king, and that you may know the thoughts of your heart, you, O king, were watching, and behold a great image. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. This image's head was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You watched while a stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet of iron and clay, and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were crushed together, and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. The wind carried them away, so that no trace of them was found. And the stone that struck the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. This is the dream. Now we will tell the interpretation of it before the king. You, O king, are a king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of the heaven, he has given them into your hand, and has made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. But after you shall arise another kingdom, inferior to yours, then another, a 3rd kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And the 4th kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything. And like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. Whereas you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Inasmuch as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. The dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure.
The head of gold is the kingdom of Babylon. The identities of the next 3 are not revealed. The feet and toes would be a mixed kingdom. The mixing is likened to the mingling with human seed, DNA. At the time of Genesis 6, such mingling happened when some wicked angels begot Nephilim with daughters of men. These were the heroes of old, like the Titans and Hercules. God destroyed the earth with a flood, and only Noah and his family were saved. These angels were cast in chains to the darkness.
The Epistle of Jude.
And the angels,
who did not keep their proper domain, but left their own abode, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness for the judgment of the great day.
The stone cut out of the mountain without hands is one uncreated God. His kingdom would fill the whole earth.
Chapter 7. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head while on his bed. Then he wrote down the dream, telling the main facts. Daniel spoke, saying,
I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, and four great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And suddenly another beast, a second, like a bear. It was raised up on one side, and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And they said thus to it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I looked, and there was another like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there, in this horn, were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. I watched till thrones were put in place, and the Ancient of Days was seated. His garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was a fiery flame, its wheels a burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. 1,000 thousands ministered to him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. I watched then because of the sound of the pompous words which the horn was speaking. I watched till the beast was slain, and its body destroyed and given to the burning flame. As for the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. I was watching in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Then to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom the one which shall not be destroyed. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit within my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near to one of those who stood by, and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. Thus he said, The 4th beast shall be a 4th kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, trample it and break it in pieces. The 10 horns are 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom, and another shall rise after them. He shall be different from the first ones, and shall subdue 3 kings. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall tend to change times and law. Then the saints shall be given into his hand, for a time, and times and half a time. But the court shall be seated, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and destroy it forever. Then the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people, the saints of the Most High. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominion shall serve and obey him. This is the end of the account. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts greatly troubled me, and my countenance changed, but I kept the matter in my heart.
The first beast was a winged lion. The lion's wings are torn off, and it is made to stand as a man. Nebuchadnezzar was humbled and restored. Daniel 4. Thus, the lion corresponds to the golden head, Babylon. The 10 horns, kings, would come from the dreadful iron beast. The little horn, king, would defeat 3 of the 10 kings and comes to power. The little horn would rule for 3.5 years. During that time he persecutes the saints. He would change times, calendar, and civil law. This has happened before. In 1582, Pope Gregory XIII introduced his Gregorian calendar. Europe had adhered to the Julian calendar, first implemented by Julius Caesar in 46 BC. On March 7, 321, Roman Emperor Constantine I issued a civil decree making Sunday a day of rest from labor, stating, "All judges and city people and the craftsmen shall rest upon the venerable day of the sun."
Chapter 8.
In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared to me, Daniel, after the one that appeared to me the first time. Standing beside the river was a ram, which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher one came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, and southward, so that no animal could withstand him, nor was there any that could deliver from his hand. But he did according to his will, and became great. And as I was considering, suddenly a male goat came from the west, across the surface of the whole earth, without touching the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Then he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing beside the river, and ran at him with furious power. And I saw him confronting the ram. He was moved with rage against him, attacked the ram, and broke his 2 horns. There was no power in the ram to withstand him, but he cast him down to the ground and trampled him, and there was no one that could deliver the ram from his hand. Therefore the male goat grew very great, but when he became strong, the large horn was broken, and in place of it 4 notable ones came up toward the 4 winds of heaven. And out of one of them came a little horn, which grew exceedingly great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the glorious land. And it grew up to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host, and some of the stars to the ground, and trampled them. He even exalted himself as high as the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifices were taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. Because of transgression, an army was given over to the horn to oppose the daily sacrifices, and he cast truth down to the ground. He did all this and prospered. Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to that certain one who was speaking, "How long will the vision be concerning the daily sacrifices, and the transgression of desolation, the giving of both the sanctuary and the host to be trampled under foot?" And he said to me, "For 2,300 days, then the sanctuary shall be cleansed. Look, I am making known to you what shall happen in the latter time of the indignation, for at the appointed time the end shall be. The ram which you saw, having the 2 horns, they are the kings of Media and Persia, and the male goat is the kingdom of Greece. The large horn that is between its eyes is the first king. As for the broken horn and the 4 that stood up in its place, 4 kingdoms shall arise out of that nation, but not with its power. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors have reached their fullness, a king shall arise, having fierce features, who understands sinister schemes. His power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. He shall destroy fearfully, and shall prosper and thrive. He shall destroy the mighty, and also the holy people. Through his cunning he shall cause deceit to prosper under his rule, and he shall exalt himself in his heart. He shall destroy many in their prosperity. He shall even rise against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without human means. And the vision of the evenings and mornings, which was told, is true. Therefore seal up the vision, for it refers to many days in the future.
The ram is identified as the Medo-Persia. Media invaded Jerusalem. The Persians came up later. They conquered Babylon in 539 BC. The male goat is Greece. Its first king was Alexander, the Great, who conquered Persia in 332 BC at the age of 24 years. He died when he was 33. His kingdom was shared by his 4 generals Cassander, Ptolemy, Lysimachus, and Seleucus. They are called the Diadochi or successors. The last of the kings of the Seleucids was Antiochus IV. He was called Epiphanes, after he desecrated the temple by placing an image of Zeus in the temple. This is called an abomination. Sacrifices ceased for 2,300 days. These prophecies have been fulfilled to the letter. Consequently, the Maccabees revolted and were able to carve out a semi-autonomous kingdom for between 167 and 63 BC. Of this period, the Hasmonean kingdom was fully independent for 47 years.
Chapter 9.
Now, while I was speaking, praying, and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my supplication before the Lord my God for the holy mountain of my God, while I was speaking in prayer, the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, reached me about the time of the evening offering. O Daniel, I have now come forth to give you skill to understand. 70 weeks are determined for your people and for your holy city, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Know, therefore, and understand, that from the going forth of the command to restore and build Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublesome times. And after the 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end of it shall be with a flood. Until the end of the war, desolations are determined. Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out on the desolate.
The edict was issued by the Persian Emperor, Artaxerxes II, to rebuild Jerusalem on March 14, 445 BC at Nehemiah's request, chapter 2 verses 1-8. After exactly 483 biblical years, 69 weeks, on April 6, 32 AD. The day we call Palm Sunday. Jesus presented himself to Israel as their Messiah. Later, he was crucified, cut off. The temple was destroyed by the Romans, under General Titus in 70 AD. This gives us the identity of the fourth kingdom, the dread feast. It is Rome. In the future is the 70th week, the time of the feet and toes of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. At that time, Rome would be revived as its religious, philosophical, cultural, political, and economic successor. It is of iron mixed with clay. It is partly strong and partly fragile. It could represent a democratic federation of 10 states or kings. It is also represented by a mixture of human seed, DNA, with the seed, DNA, of angels. The little horn would defeat 3 of the kings, Daniel chapter 7. He is the prince that would come from the Roman people, Daniel chapter 9. For convenience, let's call him the Roman prince. He would cause a 7-year covenant at the beginning of this period. That enables the third Jewish temple to be rebuilt and allows the sacrifices and offerings to commence. After 3½ years, midway into the 7 years of the 70th week, sacrifices and offerings cease. This is the abomination of desolation. The prophecies found in Daniel begin with the Babylonian kingdom in 605 BC. After Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar ruled as the co-regent with his father Nabonidus as king of Babylon. He called for a great feast. At this feast, he desecrated the vessels plundered from the temple in Jerusalem. At that time, there appeared writings on the wall, which, when interpreted by Daniel, said his kingdom was being taken away. The same night, the Medes overran Babylon. This prophecy of the capture of Babylon by Darius, the Mede, was fulfilled in 539 BC. Alexander, the Great, was 24 years old when he captured Babylon from the Persians in 332 BC. Alexander, the Great, died in Babylon when 33 years old. Thereafter, his empire was divided between 4 of his generals, known as the Diadochi or successors. In 63 BC, Roman general Pompey of the Roman Republic captured Jerusalem from the Maccabees. Octavius became the first Roman Emperor Augustus in 27 BC. Jesus was crucified in 32 AD under the Roman occupation. This signaled the end of the 69th week of the 70 weeks prophecy determined for Israel. All these prophecies have been fulfilled. The prophecy of the 70th is still unfulfilled. It has been interrupted for nearly 2,000 years. The 70th week is awaited. That would be the kingdom of feet and toes of Daniel 2. The Roman prince would reign. At the end of the 70th week would come the stone kingdom of the Son of Man and the final judgment. In chapter 13 of the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus prophesied that kingdom parables would take up the interruption of Daniel's prophecies.